Hello, welcome back to the long-awaited part 3, I believe, in my series on common mental health disorders. We had to take a little bit of a detour there around the Christmas season, but I'm back with the next part of this series, and today's video is on borderline personality disorder. I find that this disorder is one of the most misunderstood and misrepresented disorders that I would probably rank around some of the more common ones that occur in kind of the general public. It's gotten a really bad rap from different demonstrations of characters in Hollywood. These people have been made to look, very monstrous or very damaged. And while people with borderline personality disorder really do struggle, it does not always look the same. There's a variety of characteristics within the diagnoses, and you only need to meet some of them. And so someone ran a statistical analysis of this and found you had the possibility of 250 or over 250 different ways this diagnosis could look. So there's a variety of symptoms and a variety of intensities within this diagnosis. And so when you're looking at someone who has this diagnosis, or if you received this diagnosis, I really encourage you to not find an individual who's well known or someone who's within the movies that's got this diagnosis and use that as your explanation. Basically, if we're going to give an overall statement of what borderline personality disorder is, it's a disorder of emotional instability and relationship instability. And then there's also a level of impulsivity. And within those different categories, people will take actions that they're able to figure out how to take in order to resolve some of that instability and in order to basically feel better. Someone with this diagnosis often would describe their overall feeling as, pretty low, almost depressed. Occasionally it might get up to normal, maybe a little bit of a peak at like very happy, but then it'll drop back down to being quite low. And it vacillates very quickly. Often this disorder gets mixed up with bipolar disorder just because of the changes in mood. The difference being that with a borderline personality disorder, the mood shifts rapidly. It may shift several times during the day. It may shift several times over the course of several days. Whereas with a bipolar disorder, the mood shift is more gradual and more long-lasting. So a period of depression will last for quite some time before maybe shifting into a mania. So the rapidity of emotion shift is really what defines this particular disorder from some of the others. Often in this disorder, people are doing the best they can with the tools they have. And we recognize, we've recognized actually for a long time in psychology that personality disorders in general, people who have these diagnoses, they really lack tools to make differences and changes in their day-to-day life. So most of the therapy for this type of diagnoses focuses on teaching people what to do or what to do differently, or working out negative patterns within their life that are maintaining these unhealthy behaviors, these unhealthy thinking patterns, and then also to teach some techniques around managing those emotions. What do you do when you feel intensely angry? Because yelling and throwing things isn't working. One of the most challenging areas in this particular disorder that people often identify is a threat of, or a feeling of a threat of being abandoned. And a person with this diagnosis, their idea of abandonment is very different than most individuals without the diagnosis. So, for example, we learn very early on as children that there's such a thing as object permanence, which means that even though I don't perceive an object, I know that object still exists. so for myself, being here at work, I still know that my house exists, even though I'm not in it. For people with a borderline personality disorder, what makes this very difficult for them is that their relationships lack object permanence. And so when they're not with the person, it feels as though that person and that relationship no longer exists. And so they will grasp at anything because their greatest fear is being left alone. And often they'll resort to behaviors that most of us would term as being manipulative. There might be threats of suicide. There might be just becoming extremely needy or becoming very angry. And it's not because these people are intentionally trying to manipulate you most of the time. It's because they are terrified that if you leave, you're never going to come back. You're going to just disappear into that void of kind of people they don't know, or just sort of the crowd around them. And so that is something to keep in mind when you are working with someone or living with someone with this diagnosis, or if you are someone with this diagnosis. A lot of the time, if you're very terrified that everyone around you is going to leave, it's because of the feelings that come with this particular diagnosis. I will be doing a part 2 on this particular subject, so stay tuned for my next one, as I don't want to make this particular one too long. But next week I'm going to, or next session I should say, I'm going to get a little more into the emotion shifts that often occur, and then some of the impulsive behaviors that people will often use trying to manage the internal emotionality they live with all the time. So thank you for tuning in again, and I look forward to speaking with you on our next video. Thanks. Bye.